Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to Sunny Side of the Dome. I'm your host, Karen Soutar, and I'm here to talk some Blue Jays baseball with you for the next half hour or so. Sunny Side of the Dome is brought to you by Jays from the Couch. We stream live Thursdays at 6 p.m., and you can find us on Jays from the Couch's YouTube page, Twitter or Facebook. We stream live. And if you do happen to be watching live and you think of a question or comment, please do send it on in. I love that audience interaction. I think it makes the show that much better. And if you're not catching the live version, but you still want to check it out, great. When you're ready for us, we're ready for you. You can catch the archived version on any of those aforementioned medium. And now you can actually download and listen to it as a podcast. Anywhere you find Jays from the Couch podcasts, you can also find Sunny Side of the Dome. So I'm really excited about that. And if you like the content here at Sunnyside, there's lots more where that came from. There's Jays from the Couch's main podcast, which is Mondays at 6 p.m., hosted by Shaun Doyle, our senior editor, founder, and he's always got lots of stuff in store. And the other show is the Untitled Chapter, which is Tuesdays at 6 p.m. That's hosted by Steve Feck, my very unique colleague, and he has lots of interesting ways of looking at things. You'll be entertained, you'll be informed, and if you're anything like me, you might want to tear your hair out at times, but definitely worth a listen to and a watch if you haven't been doing so. So, Untitled Chapter, Tuesdays, 6 p.m. And hello, Blue Jays fans. How's it going? Happy Thursday evening to you all. Excuse me. I hope everybody is having a good day. I'm looking forward to our Blue Jays starting a new series today against the Minnesota Twins in Minnesota. So lots to talk about. As we know, the trade deadline just came and went about 48 hours ago, to be exact. So that's, I'll be getting to that. I'll be talking a lot about that. What they did, what they didn't do, how I feel about it, my analysis of it, and where I see our Jays going from there. So, excuse me a moment before I get started. All right, so leading off, as always, transactions, and not surprisingly, the majority of the transactions are centered around the trade deadline and what the Blue Jays did, players that they acquired, and excuse me, players that they had to give up in order to acquire those players, because you have to give something up to get something, as we all know. So the Blue Jays made three trades, well, three acquisition trades. The first one that was announced was with the Miami Marlins. So they traded for two relief pitchers. Basically, anybody who knows anything about this team knows that they needed to do something to improve the bullpen. Now, they've actually got some good pitchers down there. In particular, some guys who've done a lot better over the last, say, month or so, or a little bit better than that. But what they needed really was to improve the back end of their bullpen, because if the Blue Jays want to be a playoff team and they want to go deep into the playoffs, that they just need a more reliable bullpen. And they accomplished that. They traded for two relief pitchers from the Miami Marlins. So one of them, Anthony Bass, Blue Jays fans will already be very familiar with, because he spent a season with us in the past, the 2020 season, actually. So while he played for the Toronto Blue Jays, he has never pitched for the Toronto Blue Jays in Toronto, but that will change very soon. And I'm really looking forward to it. I liked Bass when he was with the Jays before. I was sorry that he didn't re-sign with them as a free agent, but now he's back. And if you look at his stats, he's actually having one of the best seasons of his career, with a 141 ERA, a 206 FIP, and he's 34 years old. So yeah. Let's just hope he just keeps doing what he's been doing for Miami, and it'll definitely help to have him back. The other pitcher that they got in that same trade is Zack Pop. Now, he's rather interesting. He's having a good season with a 3.60 ERA, and his FIP is much better than that. It's 2.82. So that, excuse me, sorry about my voice this evening. Yeah, a 2.82 FIP, so that's promising. And this is a pitcher that could actually have a fair bit of upside. He's only 25 years old. This is only his second season in Major League Baseball, and he actually throws hard. His pitches are really quality pitches. That this is from people who have seen him, who know more about him than I do. So he's someone that maybe, in spite of his pretty good results to date, he could be a little bit of a project because there could be an upside to him that we haven't yet seen in Major League Baseball. And if that happens, look out. If you've got someone who, along with Jordan Romano, is a good enough pitcher to close games, who you have a lot of faith in when he's out there, then wouldn't that be something? And as well, he's not eligible for free agency until 2027, and that's really good if you get someone who's quality and who you have the ability to hang on to for quite some time. They also get a player to be named later, so be interesting to see who that turns out to be. Unfortunately, they had to give somebody up, and that turned out to be Jordan Groshans. So he's a prospect. He's an infield prospect. The Blue Jays drafted him in 2018. He's got some promise. He was, I believe he's currently, or was at the time of the trade, ranked as their fourth highest prospect per Major League Baseball. He's got some promise. I mean, his minor league career has kind of been up and down. Over the minor leagues this season, the good news is that the on-base percentage, which is 342, he had some power earlier in his minor league career. If you look at the numbers, that seems to be MIA, no pun intended, a little bit missing in action right now at 293. So maybe that's one of the reasons the Blue Jays were willing to give up on him. But Jordan Groshans, all the best. Hope you knock it out of the park with Miami, just not with the Blue Jays. But yeah, that looks to have been a pretty good trade. And then there were a couple. It was all there. There were all kinds of rumors out there, of course, as there always are. And then there were a couple of trades that were announced, like right under or at the wire, which was 6 p.m. on Tuesday. So the Blue Jays acquired right-handed pitcher Mitch White from the LA Dodgers, as well as a prospect, Alex DeJesus. So DeJesus is 20 years old. He's played at a couple of levels, A-ball and advanced A-ball this season. His OPS is pretty good, actually. It's 832. So, excuse me a second. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to follow his career and see what happens if the Blue Jays do end up losing some players to free agency in a couple of years. Maybe he's someone who could come up and take the spot. We'll see about that. So yes, Mitch White, I'm going to get to him a little bit later, but yeah, basically he's kind of been used as a swingman. So over his career in the majors, he's gotten into some games. He's started some of the time, and a lot of other times he's come out of the bullpen. So it looks like he could be a useful arm. And again, I will circle back and talk a bit more about him later. They had to give up a couple of pitching prospects. One is Moises Brito. Another one I'm kind of sorry to see leave is Nick Frazo. Now, Nick Frazo, he's 23 years old. He throws hard. In fact, I believe he sometimes touches triple digits and doing quite well with an 0.70 ERA, 2.8 walks per 9 innings, strikeouts per 9 innings, 14.7. So maybe the Dodgers are looking at him as a future closer. I don't know. In any case, all the best to those prospects in the Dodgers organization. And yeah. That'll be interesting. And then the other trade that they made, the final trade that they made, and this one was very interesting for a number of reasons. So they acquired you basically utility player Whit Merrifield from the Kansas City Royals. And in order to acquire him, they had to give up Max Castillo, who, as we know, has pitched for the Toronto Blue Jays this season and has actually pitched fairly well, maybe more so than people expected initially. So, yeah, with the Toronto Blue Jays, Max Castillo had a 3.05 ERA, 4.42 FIP. So the Blue Jays are an above average defensive team this season. He might have benefited a bit from that. But sorry to see him go, as well as a prospect, Samad Taylor. And he kind of, interestingly, when you see Taylor and the positions he's played down at AAA, looks a little like what Whit Merrifield has done, because he's played this year second base, some center field, some right field. So he can fill in at a few other positions. Excuse me just a sec. And he can fill in at some different positions. As we all know, those of us who have been watching the Toronto Blue Jays, George Springer, unfortunately, again this season, has his health issues. The elbow seems to be a recurring thing, and there are times when he doesn't play. He's also spent a fair bit of time at DH, which he's back in the lineup today, but he's at DH. So they need someone with the ability to play center field. While Tappy has been playing some time there, I guess they wanted some other options and so forth. So, yeah. So one of the things that makes Whit Merrifield rather interesting is, if you remember the series just a few weeks ago when the Kansas City Royals came to Toronto to play a 4-game series, they had 10 players go on the restricted list, which, although they're not allowed to come out and announce it per se, basically it meant that they were unvaccinated and unable to enter Canada. And Whit Merrifield was one of those 10 players. So at first you're thinking, what? Why are the Jays trading for him? Well, anyway, he's addressed the media very recently today, just within the last hour or so. And according to him, he is vaccinated and he will be with the team in Toronto when they return to Toronto in about a week from now, after a couple of more series on the road. So that's good to know. I mean, if they gave up a couple of decent players slash prospects, hopefully it's for someone who can play all of the games with the Blue Jays and not just road games. So we'll see about that. Excuse me just a second. So yeah, Merrifield's overall numbers don't look all that great. He actually got off to a very slow start in terms of his OPS. In the month of April, it was only 370. But since then, he's done significantly better. So in May, and even 700, June back down a little bit to 620, and then July at 708, it looks like. So, I mean, that's decent. If you cut out the month of April, it's a little bit more respectable. So he can play some different positions. He can also steal some bases. So let's hope on a contending team like the Blue Jays, in a lineup who overall is really good at hitting and scoring some runs. Hopefully that'll energize him and he'll get some decent pitches to hit and get some hits, get on base, steal some bases, hopefully help the Blue Jays win. So see about how all of that goes. Okay, so we've got 4 new acquisitions. So what did they do to get all of those guys on the roster? So Andrew Vasquez, who had been sent on a rehab assignment, he must have been DFA'd at some point, although I missed that memo, so to speak. But he's been claimed by the Philadelphia Phillies. So Andrew Vasquez got into 9 games for the Jays with and 8.10 ERA and a 5.97 FIP. So all the best to Andrew Vasquez, but to be fair, realistically speaking, he really wasn't helping the Blue Jays. So I hope he does well elsewhere with the Phillies. The Jeremy Beasley show in Toronto has finally come to an end. So yes, he was optioned again. I think that was the fifth time. And then finally, that it was one other trade that the Blue Jays got involved in. Strictly speaking, a trade they traded Beasley to the Pittsburgh Pirates for cash or cash considerations. So basically, just clearing off the roster spot. And again, Beasley 4.80 ERA, 5.45 FIP. So I mean, realistically, if the Blue Jays are going to contend, which they are, and which there is their intention this season, Jeremy Beasley really isn't someone who was helping. So again, all the best to him with Pittsburgh. Maybe they can figure something out, or he can figure it out there. So Yusei Kikuchi has been activated off the injured list. He's gotten into 2 games. He hasn't been bad. And in 2 games, he's pitched 9 innings and given up 3 runs. So that's not bad over a game or so. Well, how many people pitch complete games anymore? But yeah, I mean, he pitched 5 innings the first time out, for the second time out. So he's still someone to watch, and hopefully he can continue to get a little bit better. Trent Thornton, he's been called back up, so he's here around at least for the time being. We'll see about that. And Matt Gage was recalled, but he's been optioned back down because Bass, Pop, and Merrifield have all reported to the team. So they needed room on the 26 roster as well. So Matt Gage was called back up and then sent back down. Anthony Mendez been designated for assignments. So again, somebody who was really more of a back end of the bullpen option. And if they can get better, which I believe they did, then good for them. Matt Peacock, also another pitcher, called back up and then sent back down. And yes, the other option was Zach Collins. So now they've cleared. So now they're fine as far as their 40-man spots and their 26-man spots, and those are your transactions for this week. So that took a fair bit of time there, and now we're into the heart of the order. So, but what did you think of the trade deadline? I've listened to a lot of different people. I've read comments on social media, and I think many Blue Jays fans found the trade deadline underwhelming. I think a lot of us, myself included, were really hoping for a bigger splash. We all knew that improving the bullpen is something that they needed, and they did that. That's the one thing I think I would give them an A on that part of it. And then I was really hoping that they would shop in the high end of the market as far as getting a starting pitcher. And there were quality starting pitchers that were traded. Luis Castillo, he was number 1 on my wish list, and the Seattle Mariners went out and got him for 4 prospects. I mean, they definitely did pay to get him. Frankie Montas, he went to the Yankees, and yeah, there were various different moves, and I was really hoping that the Blue Jays trade deadline would look a lot more like that. But then I really looked at the moves that they've made, and honestly, well, I can't give them an A for the trade deadline overall. I'm kind of feeling like it might be a little better than some of us initially thought that it might be. So here's one of the reasons why. So circling back, as I said a bit, so there were one of the rumors that was right there, almost right up until 6:00, was Noah Syndergaard, that he signed in the offseason a 1-year deal with the Anaheim Angels. The Anaheim Angels, once again, are not contending. Mercy. Got to feel bad for those guys. Got to feel bad for Mike Trout. And just don't really understand it. But anyway, so yeah, they are not playoff bound this year. So Syndergaard became a trade candidate. And from what people were saying, it kind of came down to the Blue Jays bringing him back to where he started. Although he never pitched for the major league team, he was originally a Toronto Blue Jay prospect, and he was traded away to the New York Mets, along with a couple of others for R.A. Dickey. So would the Jays bring him back? Ultimately, it didn't work out that way. He went to the Philadelphia Phillies. And from what I saw from some of the people that I follow on Twitter, they would have been quite happy to have Noah Syndergaard back in a Blue Jays uniform. And you look at his numbers this year, and I mean they're kind of so. They're not great, but they're not terrible. I don't know if some people were more excited by the name, the fact that it was Noah Syndergaard, and that he's thrown 100 in the past. I don't know that he does anymore. He's had Tommy John surgery. And but I mean, he's back to pitching in the major leagues, and with at least some success. So if you are someone who would have been happy if the Blue Jays had reacquired Noah Syndergaard, then what I say to you is you should be happy right now, because Mitch White, the pitcher that they did get from the LA Dodgers, his numbers and Noah Syndergaard's numbers this season are so similar. It's almost eerie. Somebody that I follow on Twitter actually pointed out that Mitch White has been as good as Noah Syndergaard this season. I'm like, okay, I got to take a look at that. And I looked at the numbers, and yeah, my mind blown a second. So Noah Syndergaard, earned run average, 383, FIP, 395. xERA. So these expected stats that I still don't completely understand, but people who understand more than I do, they know about X stats. So xERA 422, xFIP 428. Okay. I mean, not necessarily ace of the staff material, but still a decent major league pitcher. And then Mitch White, ERA 370 compared to 383 for Syndergaard. FIP 590, or so not five, excuse me, pardon me, 396, so 1 point higher than Noah Syndergaard's 395. xERA 414, so again a little lower than 422, and xFIP 424. I mean those stats, how similar they are, I really had to double check it, honestly. So in theory, it looks like the Blue Jays have got somebody who's just as good as Noah Syndergaard has been this year. Mitch White is also 2 years younger than Syndergaard, and he comes with a lot of team control. He's not eligible for free agency until 2028. So the Blue Jays have got someone who they can hang on to, who they can help build for their future. And it's interesting how similar in some ways he is to Ross Stripling. So the Blue Jays acquired him in a trade with the LA Dodgers, and Mitch White over his career has gotten into 38 games in major leagues, 14 of them as a starter. So he's started games, but he's also been used out of the bullpen. So kind of sounds like a swingman, just like Stripling has been. And Ross Stripling, for those of you who don't know, is eligible for free agency at the end of this season. So I'm hoping that they can find a way to retain Ross Stripling's services. But I mean, if they do, or even if they don't, they might have his replacement all lined up for the next several years. So I'm thinking that could end up being a better trade than maybe some people realize. So yeah, it's it's really interesting. Overall, I would give the trade deadline maybe a C, maybe a C plus. Like I'm happiest with the bullpen acquisitions. Mitch White, that looks promising, and Whit Merrifield. I mean, again, this is someone who's been pretty good in the past. Looks like he's having sort of an down season this season, but a lot of that bad stuff happened earlier in April. So hopefully he can really pick it up in coming to the Blue Jays. And again, he says he's vaccinated, so hopefully there's no problems there, and he'll be able to play all of the remaining games, or be available for all of the remaining games for the Blue Jays, and make a positive contribution. Fingers crossed. Excuse me. All right, so that's almost brings me to the end of today's show, which means it's time for Through Blue Jays Colored Glasses. So here we are. The trade deadline has come and gone, and the Blue Jays are who they are. And they've got their roster set. And other than minor league call ups, maybe the ability to activate guys from the injured list if that happens down the road. Other than that, this is pretty much the team that they're going to have through the rest of this season. There have been players DFA'd here and there. I don't know if they would want to take a chance on any of them. So see how that goes. But basically, the roster is what it is. A lot of people, as I said, including me, were hoping for a bigger splash from the Toronto Blue Jays. And a lot of people were disappointed. Why wouldn't they do better when they're trying to win as much as they can this season? The thing is, the Blue Jays have been building toward this for some time. So, I mean, they've built a very good core of players, and in my opinion, all they really needed to do was add to it, and I think they succeeded at some of that. I mean, you've got players coming to the Blue Jays in the regular way through the draft. So Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio, Danny Jansen, Jordan Romano, Tim Meza, and then several years after that, Alek Manoah. So they are homegrown Blue Jays who have always been in this organization from the start of their professional career. They've certainly made good use of the international free agent signings. Number one, of course, with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but also Lourdes Gurriel Jr. and Alejandro Kirk. So a couple of all-stars in there, guys who have done very well for the Blue Jays. They've added via the trade market as they've gone along over the years. Teoscar Hernandez, Santiago Espinal, Ross Stripling, Jose Barrios, and Matt Chapman, Adam Simber, Trevor Richards. So, for those of us who may be frustrated if it seemed like the Blue Jays were unwilling to trade away some of their better prospects to get some very established help, they traded away two top prospects, to get Jose Barrios, who they have since extended. And then this past offseason, they traded away four players slash prospects to get Matt Chapman, who's doing pretty well at third base, who's been hitting very well lately. So it's not that they're completely unwilling to trade prospects, and that's something I knew that, and my husband pointed that out to me earlier. So credit to him for that one point there. But I mean, they've been making ads, they've been building this team. And then they've augmented through free agency. So Ryu was a big free agent signing a couple of years ago. Yes, he's done for the season, so he's not going to help per se, but it shows they're willing to dip into the free agent market and to spend some real money. Then a year later, George Springer. A year after that, Kevin Gausman, Yusei Kikuchi, and Jimmy Garcia, who's been a real find out of that bullpen. So I think they've done very well overall. I think they already had a good core. And while it would have been great to see another high splashy acquisition, I was really hoping for starting pitcher Luis Castillo myself, but that didn't happen. But it's not like the Blue Jays right now are without talent. They have the third best record in the American League. They're holding down the first wild card spot. Per Fangraphs, they have a 97% chance of making the playoffs. I think they're making the playoffs this year. I don't see them missing out by one game. I don't see them missing out at all. This is their year, or one of their years, to go out there and show what they've got. They've even got a 4.8% chance of winning the division in spite of the Yankees and their 11-game lead. So, for me, I think that's about realistic. I'd give them about a 5% chance of catching the Yankees. It's a pretty big gap there, but they've been coming back to earth a bit lately. So stranger things have happened. But one more interesting stat that I'll leave you with before I go, and this is courtesy of my Jays from the Couch colleague, Bob Ritchie. So, Bob, I don't know if you're watching, but if you are, thank you very much. And even if you're not, thank you very much. So, in 2021, there's all these websites and odds makers and so forth. In 2021, Atlanta was given a 1.1% chance of winning the World Series. Well, they defied those odds and they won the World Series. Our Blue Jays this year have been ranked or rated as a 6.1% chance of winning the World Series. So, on paper, a much better chance. Now, never think that we're out of it until we're eliminated, if that happens, and I hope it doesn't. But just keep hanging there. Watch. Keep believing in them until the very end. I'm going to do that because stranger things have happened. There's so much talent on this team. They did improve this team, even if it might not have been by a giant step the way a lot of us might have wanted. But this is a team with a real chance. They're one of the better teams out there. They are going to the playoffs this year, and I can't wait to see how far they go. I think it's going to be really good. So we'll see. Stay tuned. And on that note, that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sticking with me. And my voice today, I don't know what's up with that, but anyway. And yeah, so that's it for today. And let's go Blue Jays. Let's hope they have a great season against the Twins. And I'll see you again in a week.